In this video, I'd like to ask a question. Do we sometimes spread ourselves too thin after losing a loved one? Hello, my name is Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you're here for the first time, you're very, very welcome. If you've been here before, thank you. Thank you so much for coming back. I so appreciate it. So I've observed a few things, and that's really what I'd like to share in this video. Recently, I have a few friends and family members who have lost their second parent. Okay, I've also lost both my parents, but I'll share those experiences on future videos. Right now, I really would like to focus in on what I've observed from some close friends and family who've lost their second parent. So it might be the case may be that the second parent has had ill health, and in which case the siblings are taking it in turns to look after that parent and seeing to all their needs, and that might be the case. In which case you might have had some time to think about the inevitable. You can sort of see where this is going and possibly prepare yourself. On the other hand, it might be that you lost your parent quite suddenly and you hadn't even thought about it. You had no time to prepare. Whether it's that you had time to prepare or not, you still, when it actually comes to that point of losing your parent, you're still not completely and utterly prepared for the excruciating pain it brings with that, of actually losing your parent. And we know that. What I've seen is it's almost as if everyone goes into a bit of a frenzy. Your parents passed away and you've got a funeral to arrange, you've got paperwork to pick up from the hospital perhaps and take it to this office and get the death certificate, and you're sort of running around trying to do that. At the same time, there's people coming to the house to pay their respects. You might have relatives coming in to stay with you, perhaps from other cities, other towns. You're trying to organise how that's going to work out, and meals, and etc., etc. And to be fair, people do chip in and people do help. You're not usually left, on your own to deal with all these things. But I sort of acknowledge that, and I'm observing that, and then so you've not actually really had any time to actually process what's happened. You're still in a state of shock and completely overwhelmed. Then comes the funeral, and you're having to almost perform that day because you're in this state of almost like numbness, and you're trying to deal with the day and trying to deal with people coming to you and hugging you and paying their respects. And it's a difficult day, no doubt. It absolutely is. Then what happens after that? You then go into a bit of a frenzy of maybe one sibling sorting out the estate, what's left, and trying to make some kind of sense of that. Someone else maybe dealing with other aspects of your parents, what your parents left behind. It might be that you've grown up in that house. There's so many memories in that house. Deciding what you're going to do with it and what you're going to do with possessions. You might think, well, we'll sell some things, possibly. You might think, well, we'll give some things to certain charities, perhaps, and then other things. You come across, let's say, your father's winter coat, and you think, and you can see your father in it, and you think, well, I'm gonna have to keep this. And it's difficult. It's difficult. And you've not actually had time to sit and process anything, because these are all distractions. These are all distractions, and you're not, and while doing that, you've not actually given yourself some time to deal with what's going on up here. It's almost as if, you're picking all the possessions up, all the things in the house, and maybe just ramming them into one room, and then closing the door on it. And you can see that the house is clear, you can see a clear space, but just because you can see that it's clear doesn't mean to say it necessarily is. And if you haven't dealt with things, then things have a way of showing up, can show up later. So you've got to a stage now where, you've sorted out, the estate, and you've sorted out possessions, you've sorted out things, possibly a will, and all that's been all dealt with. And then you need to go back to work because you took some time off work, and that's it. You have to go back to work, in order to carry on paying the bills and pay for food. So you've got a distraction again, and a lot of people, I found, what I was observing was that they've thrown themselves into work, working as many hours as they possibly can, and then they're juggling those extra hours, are juggling that work life, and they're trying to juggle it with home life and give what home needs from them as well. And then they may be dealing with things like the children getting upset perhaps, or things like coming to terms with, on a weekend, you maybe spent one day visiting your parents' home, and your children were visiting their grandparents' home, and that might be the place where you feel really comfortable. You feel that that's one place where you can kick off your shoes and sit back and be fed and be looked after, and it's all good. So it can have all those connections with it. It's a safe place, beyond safe perhaps. And then there's so many emotions embedded in that home and everything in it. You might have lived there for such a long time with your siblings and your parents. There might be so many memories, so many milestones may have come and gone, and the school, and then college and university. Perhaps you might have got married, and all sorts of things, and house parties and gatherings where all those celebrations you've had and birthdays you've had in that house, and then in the garden perhaps. So there's so much, and then there's such a big void left because that's sort of gone away. And what do you do with your weekends now? Whereas that was something that you possibly were looked forward to. So there's so much, and I think it's quite important to make sure that you check in with each other. Everyone has their own way of dealing with loss and grief. Just because you're siblings doesn't mean to say you're all processing it all in the same way. Everyone's different, everyone's unique, everyone's relationship with their parent is unique. So checking in with each other is important, and also, most importantly, checking in with yourself is important, to see where you are. Grief is like a continuum. You might be okay one day, you might think, oh, I've got this, I'm okay, and then the next day you hit rock bottom because you saw someone out with their, you saw a son out with his elderly father, and you think, I'm never going to have that again. And then the third day you might be feeling okay again, and then fourth day your child is upset because they're missing their grandparent, and it's a complete like roller coaster. But while you're on that roller coaster, it's important to have some time off, and some time which is you time to check in, and time to analyze, where am I with this, and what's happening with this. What can I bring to what have I learned from this? A part of me I've lost, yes, and you lose that part with with losing your parent. You're never ever going to be the same again, and we know that. But what have I gained from this? How have I evolved? You know, that resiliency that I've sort of had to exercise. What has that brought for me? How have I evolved? What have I learnt? What can I bring to the world now? And what can I share with my children that possibly my parents didn't share with me? Because probably one day they are going to, you know, lose their parents as well. How can I make it not necessarily better, but how can I better equip them for that time? So there's so many things to think about, and so much, and I just feel as if, as a bystander, you know, looking on, I just feel as if it's a complete roller coaster and no one's really processing anything. And so that was just my observation. It's so important to look after your mental health, to look after your physical health, because that then helps with the symptoms of grief. You know, it helps, you know, not looking after your physical and mental health means that you exacerbate those symptoms of grief. And so it's important to take care of your, you know, well-being and to check in. So that was my main message for today on that, and it's just on what I've observed just recently. If you feel that the content of this video might help someone, just to say, you know, can you slow down and just give yourself some time, cut yourself some slack, you know, give yourself a break. You know, you can't be everything to everyone all the time. It just isn't possible. And sometimes you just need to be your authentic self and be honest with yourself as to what that authentic self is. Yeah. So thank you so much. It means so much to me. Thank you for coming back. I hope to see you again in the next video. Thank you.